Here's the great thing about air guitars. They can be any shape. I'm Andrei Mincov, the founder of Trademark Factory, and in this video I'm going to share my thoughts about yet another trademarking screw-up. This time around, it's Gibson losing another trademark in the EU for the shape of its guitars. Let me start by reading from the article, and you can always find the link in the description below. Gibson loses Firebird body shape trademark in EU court battle. 50-year wait to apply for trademark cited as contributing factor. Ugh. All right. Gibson has suffered another defeat in its quest to secure trademarks for its body shapes in the European Union. After losing the trademark for the flying V shape back in June, the company has now had its mark now for the Firebird shape cancelled too. According to Guitar.com, the cancellation division of the EU Intellectual Property Office came to a similar conclusion regarding the Firebird as the flying V, claiming that it does not consider this to be significantly different from the normal style of electric guitars. The fact that Gibson waited 50 years since launching the first Firebird models, first filing for trademarks in 2011, also contributed to the decision. As with the Flying V case, Warwick and Framus owner Hans-Peter Wilfer brought the application against Gibson. One of the more notable observations from the case was that even if guitarists can clearly identify a guitar outline, the more pertinent factor is whether it means anything to a non-player, which apparently it doesn't, at least when it comes to the Firebird. Guitar body shapes may perhaps function as trademarks for a tiny club of expert and discerning guitarists, but not for the average amateur, who is the relevant public in assessing distinctive character in this case, the EU IPO stated. Now this is weird because normally when you look at the relevant audience, relevant public, is not everybody. It's people who are potential customers of the product or a service which is trademarked, because and also you look at the sophistication required for the purchase of the particular product or service, because if it's something that costs a couple of dollars and very little sophistication is required, then you get lower standards for what is deemed confusingly similar. Whereas when it's something very expensive, something that people take a long time to consider and make sure that they understand exactly who is selling the product, who is making the product, then the standard for what's confusingly similar is different. And here what EU IPO says that, hey, it's not just the guitarists who are supposed to have some idea about who is making the guitar based on the shape. It's everybody. And even if you've never played guitar, if you're not planning to play the guitar, if you're not, if you're not watching music videos, like how do you suppose, how is that supposed to work, right? Because again, there has to be some familiarity with the product for the likelihood of confusion to ever exist. So I don't understand this argument. I don't understand why the relevant universe is not guitar players, people who've had their fair share of looking at different guitars and making their pick. But let's keep going. This decision only relates to the body shape as it appears on guitars. Gibson still possesses the trademark in all other areas, most notably merchandise. And of course, Gibson's trademarks remain in the USA, with the Flying V forming a key part of its ongoing lawsuit against Dean Guitars in the USA. So we've covered that in a previous video, that big fight that they've got with Dean Guitars. But let's go back to Europe and look at their argument. So let's forget the audience. Really what their argument is that the shape, while it could be, in theory, protected by a trademark, in this case, shouldn't be because it's not distinctive enough. That there are so many shapes of the guitars that this particular one is not unique enough to merit them having a monopoly over it. And the other thing from here is, if they own the shape, what about others who may not copy the shape exactly, but do something similar? Where does the distinctive character of this guitar shape and the generic shape of any electric guitar begin? That's a tough one because nobody really knows, right? There are so many shapes of guitars, but with electric guitars, there are many combinations. There are many shapes that are kind of in between other shapes. So if there's no clarity as to where the one iconic shape and the other one begins, then you have a problem. And the important thing here is, and I agree with that if it took you 50 years to realize that this is actually a trademark, this is something that you want to own, then you may have a problem. And granted, protecting shapes of products through trademarks is not something that had been there forever. Usually trademarks have been limited to just names, logos, and maybe taglines, and everything else was considered a non-traditional trademark. The smells, the shapes, the scents, the colors, all of that kind of stuff. But it didn't begin in 2011. It started to be possible to register shapes a long time ago. So because Gibson didn't bother to claim this as their trademark for so long, that opened the door for other manufacturers to create their guitars that were or could be substantially similar in shape to Gibson's guitar. And because of that, EU IPO said, hey, you didn't bother to protect it then, you got it now. And maybe we were wrong back then, and you shouldn't really own the monopoly. Because, hey, they say, we're not guitarists, right? We thought it was unique, and now we have all of these arguments as to why it's really not. And so it's sad because, I mean, look, I'm not a guitarist. I've always envied people who can play the guitar. I'm a drummer and I play the piano and the keyboard. And I've always wanted to learn to play guitar, but I just, never wanted to hurt my fingers. So anyway, I've always, I can recognize this guitar because I've seen so many music videos where this shape is the highlight of the video. And it's a sad day when somebody who came up with this iconic shape can no longer protect it. But it's a combination, really. EU IPO is known to go after big brands, after big names, right? After they said that Big Mac is is not really known enough in Europe to to deserve to be trademarked. I'm really not surprised by anything. So they can cancel anything they want. But Gibson is now having this fight, not just in Europe, it's more than that. And I guess this just goes to the lack of strategy, the lack of foresight in terms of how do we protect our most valuable assets. Anybody can build a guitar, right? Whatever competitive edge they had on the making back in the day is now so much harder to enforce. Yes, they've got the technologies. Whatever patents they used to have are now public domain. It's hard to come up with new technologies, and other players can come into the market and start selling and making and selling pretty much the same thing. So the brand is really the only thing that Gibson now monetizes. The name, the shape, the colors, the taglines, all of that. This is the reason why Gibson can charge what they charge for their guitars versus somebody who has no brand. And like I said, it's a sad day when they find themselves in a situation when all of their branding assets that they've worked so hard to build may no longer be protectable. So that's the story. We'll see how their dispute with Dean Guitars goes in the US, and we'll keep you posted. And if you've got a brand that you want to protect, whether it's a shape, a name, a tagline, a logo, or I don't know, maybe a color, something else, something that you use to distinguish your products and services from identical products and services of everyone else, go to trademarkfactory.com, book your free call with our strategy advisors, and start the countdown to having your brand protected and secured. You don't want to find yourself in a situation when everything you've been working for is not something that you own, and maybe it even belongs to somebody else and you have to start all over again. Go to trademarkfactory.com, book that call. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and get notified whenever the next video goes live. And if you like this video, click the like button, right? Doesn't cost you anything. Click the like button and subscribe. And until then, I will see you in the next video.